Draw a small circle of ink around an ant, and something strange happens. It stops. It doesn't step over the line. It paces along the inside edge, again and again, like it hit an invisible wall. You've probably seen the video. Maybe you've tried it yourself. But the real explanation for why this happens is far stranger than ants are scared of pens. Because ants aren't scared of anything, really. Not in the way you're scared of things. So, what is actually happening inside that little ring of ink? And what does it reveal about how differently an ant experiences the world compared to you? Start with a simple fact. You navigate mostly by sight. You look at a room and you know where the door is, where the furniture is, where your feet should go next. An ant does almost none of that. Its vision is poor, built more for detecting motion and light than for reading fine detail. So, how does it get around it all? The answer is smell, but not smell the way you know it. An ant's entire world is built from chemical trails. As it walks, it lays down a scent, a pheromone, from glands near the tip of its body. Other ants follow that scent like a printed map laid across the ground. Food this way, danger that way. Home straight ahead. An ant colony isn't really thousands of individual thinkers making individual decisions. It's closer to one distributed system, writing and reading messages in chemistry instead of language. Now bring back the pen. Many inks, especially permanent markers, contain alcohol-based solvents. As that ink dries, it releases fumes and leaves behind a chemical residue on the surface. To you, it's an odorless line. To an ant, it's an overwhelming wall of foreign chemical noise, drowning out the pheromone signals it depends on to know where it's been and where it's going. The ant isn't refusing to cross a physical barrier. It's lost. Completely, chemically lost. Every scent cue it trusts has just been scrambled by a smell it has no evolved response to except caution. So it does what any lost creature does when its map suddenly stops making sense. It stays close to the last thing it recognized, pacing, waiting for the signal to return. This is where the story stops being about ants and starts being about instinct itself and how brittle it can be the moment the world changes even slightly. Consider the invisible fence, the kind some dog owners bury along a yard's edge. There's no wall, no visible line, just a thin radio signal paired, early on, with a mild static correction near the boundary. The dog isn't held back by anything physical either. It's held back by a learned association, a signal it has been trained to avoid. Different mechanism than the ant. Same underlying idea. A boundary that exists entirely in signal, not in substance. And yet, it works exactly like a wall to the animal experiencing it. Now go further into the ant colony itself, because the pen trick is a small, deliberate version of something ants sometimes do to themselves by accident, and the accidental version is far darker. It's called an ant mill, sometimes a death spiral. Army ants, which are functionally blind and rely almost completely on the pheromone trail of the ant directly in front of them, can occasionally lose the main trail during a mass migration. If the very front of that lost group accidentally links back up with its own trail, the ants form a closed loop. Each ant simply follows the scent of the ant ahead of it. There is no leader reconsidering the plan. There is no ant thinking, wait, haven't we passed this rock already? The trail simply says, keep walking. And they do. Entomologists have documented these circles running for hours, sometimes for a full day or more. Ants dying one by one from exhaustion while the survivors continue circling the corpses of their own colony, still faithfully following a scent trail that leads nowhere but around and around. It sounds almost impossibly bleak for something as small as an ant, until you realize the mechanism isn't unique to ants at all. It's what happens whenever a simple rule that works well in almost every situation meets the rare situation it was never built for. Which brings you to the fly slamming into your window. A fly's flight instincts are ancient, older than glass, older than houses. For most of insect evolutionary history, moving toward open light reliably meant moving toward open space, since dense forests and undergrowth were dark and clearings were bright. Head toward brightness, escape the tangle. It's a rule that worked for an almost unimaginable span of time. Then humans built windows. Now brightness means glass, and the fly's ancient, perfectly reasonable rule turns into a repeated collision with a solid pane it cannot perceive as solid at all. The moth circling a candle flame runs on a similar kind of broken math, just a different one. Moths evolved to navigate long distances using the moon, an object so far away that its light rays arrive essentially parallel no matter where the moth is. By keeping a fixed angle to that light source, a moth can fly in a straight line for miles. It's an elegant, efficient piece of natural engineering. But hold a candle close, and its light rays don't arrive parallel like moonlight. They radiate outward from a single nearby point. The moth tries to maintain that same fixed angle anyway, and because the light source is close instead of impossibly far, maintaining that angle bends its path into a slow, tightening spiral, inward toward the flame. None of these animals are broken. None of them are stupid. The ant circling the ink, the ants dying in a mill, the fly hitting the glass, the moth spiraling toward the fire. Every one of them is running an instinct that has worked, reliably, for millions of years. What's failing isn't the animal. It's the assumption baked into the instinct that the world will keep presenting the same conditions it always has. And this is the part worth sitting with, because it's not only true for insects circling a candle. Every rule of thumb you carry, every gut reaction you trust without examining it, was built by past experience for past conditions. Most of the time, like the ant's pheromone trail, it works beautifully. It gets you where you need to go without a single conscious thought. But every so often, the world shifts in some small, specific way. A line of ink, a pane of glass, a nearby flame, and the very same instinct that has always guided you correctly starts leading you in a perfect, useless circle. So, the next time you watch an ant pacing furiously along a line it refuses to cross, remember what you're actually looking at. Not a dumb creature trapped by nothing. A brilliant ancient system encountering, for the very first time, a rule it was never built to handle. The line was never the wall. The wall was the moment the world stopped matching the map.